Welcome back to another episode of Becoming a Mental Health Champion, the podcast, a place where we talk about resilience, adversity, and the art of the bounce back and turning that pain into something more purposeful. Today, I'm excited to welcome a very special guest, Dr. Alicia Yamamoto, and she's the owner of Yamamoto Wellness based here in Las Vegas. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. So, for people that are not familiar with the Mental Health Champions podcast, you can subscribe to our channel on YouTube. It's under the ABF Resiliency Project and on YouTube, and then also on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts. So, I want to start with just the fact that we connected through being featured in a publication, digital publication called Bold Journey. And
Yeah.
it was both around the topic of like mental health and more specifically resilience and building resilience. So I guess maybe I wanted to start there with you kind of introducing yourself and your background and then what your views are on resilience.
Yeah. So my background is I'm an athletic trainer and I don't, there's a lot of people who don't know what athletic training is. So I'm just going to take a brief moment to even explain what that
Yeah.
is. But it's a licensed healthcare profession that works primarily in, well, the roots of the career are working primarily in sports. And athletic trainers are musculoskeletal specialists where we focus on orthopedic related injuries. So back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, ACL tears, Achilles tears, anything that you would traditionally see in sport. And athletic trainers, that's kind of where the profession was really born, was out of the sports setting. So oftentimes you'll see athletic trainers hired in-house with different teams. The profession has evolved quite a bit since then. Athletic trainers are seen in all sorts of settings now, in the performance industries, in the clinic industries, in the industrial setting. So it's been really awesome to see the profession evolve. But to be clear, athletic trainers still they focus, their specialization is in orthopedic related injuries. It's very similar to the profession of physical therapy, where we do hands-on treatment, manual therapy care, dry needling, different modalities for recovery. We also do injury rehab, surgical and non surgical. And we focus on the return to sport aspect after injury as well, from the rehab setting in the clinic to then transitioning more to sport specific needs to get back into performance. Athletic trainers also do the acute emergency coverage. So if someone is on the field and they get injured, they tear their ACL, they dislocate an ankle, the athletic trainers are there to acutely manage the situation. And then also from an injury prevention standpoint, really working on corrective exercises, mobility work, biomechanic, ergonomic assessments to really evaluate the body from a preventative standpoint and try to reduce risks of injuries. So my background is in athletic training, and I did start in very traditional athletic training settings. My ultimate goal was always to become a director of sports medicine in the NBA. I wish I could tell you that I had like a very specific reason for that. I think it was just because I was a kid growing up in the Chicago area in the 90s, and the Chicago Bulls was just like the most prominent team of
The MJ
anything in
era.
yeah. So I think there was just some subliminal messaging there. But my career has evolved quite a bit since that time. Yes, I did work in professional basketball ultimately, but I've also worked in a lot of variety of settings. Now I've worked in the clinic setting, the performance industry. I've worked in the industrial setting. I'm in private practice now. I've worked at the high school level, college level, professional level. I've kind of experienced a little bit of everything at this point. So
So I
kind of a
feel,
little all over.
yeah, no. So as you're talking through your career, and I do want to come to, sort of your perspectives on what's key in building resilience, and I feel like we've been on somewhat parallel paths from a career standpoint. So I started my career in journalism actually as a reporter, and then I got into the NFL kind of going to the other side in public relations. I work for the San Diego Chargers, and
Okay.
working with the athletic trainers, and this is like
Yeah.
during a period where with the NFL, there's so much intensity around injuries and concussions, and the
Yeah.
fans want to know, hey, is the guy coming back in? We saw him walk off the field, and getting a chance to work with the trainers was pretty memorable because the sideline reporters are trying to get interviews and, hey, what's the update on the quarterback? And the trainers are like, oh, hell no, we're not giving out any information. So it's just kind of interesting. And, then getting, into my career, being able to support professional sports teams, does do some work with our Vegas Golden Knights here in Las Vegas. And
Mhm.
that's why I wrote my book, Becoming a Mental Health Champion. uh, the inspiration for that book was because during our Stanley Cup championship run, Bruce Cassidy, our head coach, had a theme throughout the playoffs that year in 2023, which was, winning hurts. And I
Mm.
picked up on that as we kind of made this incredible journey all the way to the Stanley Cup. And I was grateful for that opportunity for a variety of reasons. One, I got a ring, which was not something that was on my my list there, but that experience of being part of a championship, because I was part of one in the NFL with the Chargers. We went to the Super Bowl my first year in '94, and we won't talk about that. That was against the 49ers, but that's a story for another day. But I think what I learned is that there is this sort of art to resilience, and this art of the bounce back, and the fact that, yeah, it's great to be the last person standing with that championship trophy, but to get there, there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of resilience that you have to build. What do you say about that from your perspective?
Yes, I mean, I think the reality that we oftentimes forget is that the majority of the time in your life you're going to lose. Like you're going to come up with losses and failures time after time, and only every once in a while are you going to get these very clear moments of like the success, the
Yes.
accolade, the achievement, where it's very easy to see, okay, this was a win. But I think we don't remember that as we're going through the process. And so part of that is, that mentality of, it really is a mentality of like these failures, these pains are very purposeful, and we have to use them to really feed us forward. And we can't look at it as this is a failure. I mean, certainly this is an opportunity to learn, and certainly this is not where we wanted to be, and we want to keep going, but there's something valuable there, and we have to find a way to get something out of those experiences, because otherwise, yeah, you're going to feel like you're losing, you're going to feel like you're failing, and that's really going to weigh on you. And you've got to, the resilience, developing the resilience there is really being able to tap into that mindset and kind of shift from that and being able to gain from these opportunities.
So we're on the Becoming a Mental Health Champion podcast. If you're just joining us in this conversation with Alicia Yamamoto of Yamamoto Wellness, and we're talking about the art of resilience. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about personally your personal journey, and you've done some amazing things that you've mentioned in terms of sports. But one thing I read in the Bold Journey feature was about your work with Cirque du Soleil. You want to talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that, and then talk about maybe your personal journey of dealing with adversity in your career?
Yeah, so Cirque du Soleil was an amazing opportunity for me. I never dreamed of working in the circus. That was never a goal of mine. That was never the intention. I wanted basketball. I wanted to work in professional basketball, and I was very tunnel vision in that goal. Everyone who knew me prior to that point knew Alicia in basketball, and that's it. Like every professor, every coworker, every like classmate, it was the goal was always professional basketball. And I had really pursued that and really started to block out anything and everything that I felt was going to get in the way of that goal, including my own self, my own feelings, my own mental health, my own wellness, my own worth, my own boundaries, what I'm willing to sacrifice. I even shut out myself in that process. And when I finally got to professional basketball, I was kind of like, well, what is this? Like this isn't that grandiose moment that I thought I was going to walk upon, like we just talked about these big moments of success. I got there and I was very unhappy and I was
Oh,
very,
wow.
very unhappy. And I, was like, why? Why am I unhappy? This was everything that I had been working toward, and there was no particular reason, right? It was just I got there and I was very unhappy and I was very dissatisfied. I was dissatisfied with my life, my work life balance, the quality of the life, and the relationships that I had.
Yeah.
And I realized, you know, I had let my goals become my values, and I didn't even know
Mm.
that. And by the time I got there, I didn't even know what the difference between a goal and a value was anymore. My goal of basketball had become my values, my identity, my worth. And when it wasn't fulfilling, that really shook me. And I had to it was basically like starting all over again. I started seeing a therapist who that
Wow,
was
that part, that
her
part,
first
therapy.
yeah, it was her that was and honestly like that was her introduction to my therapy was like we need to break this down to some very basic skills of what is an emotion, like what is a feeling, what is a value versus a goal, because I really didn't know. At that point I didn't know. All I knew was, what degrees I needed to get, the achievements I needed to have, the type of resume that I needed, and I didn't know anything about my life. I didn't even know any hobbies. I had no interests. I
Wow.
didn't know what I liked. And so we had to break it down and go really far back. And in that process, I was like, wow, I've got a lot that I need to kind of untangle here. And I don't know if I can do this while still working in basketball. And it was
Mm.
a very scary moment for me because I couldn't let go of that dream. That was something that I wrapped my whole world and identity around. And, choosing to step away from it at this point of time where it's like, yes, I have experience now, but also I'm not very established either. So if I walk away from it, what does that mean? Is that going to close the door to basketball? Like I didn't know, right? But I kind of had to just go with my gut and go with my intuition that, if I'm going to make this work for myself, I've got to put this aside for now. And there's some things that I've got to work on for myself. And I didn't really know what that meant. But then the opportunity came up to go to Cirque du Soleil. And I was like, it's not something I ever thought about before. I knew what Cirque du Soleil was because I have family here in Vegas. My family has grown up vacationing here in Vegas. We've almost always went to a Cirque show
Did
every
you go to
year when we
Circus
came up to.
Circus?
Yes, yes, back in. uh,
For the kid in
and so I
you.
Yes, and so I was aware of it, and I always loved the shows, but it was just never something I considered. But at this point of time, I'm like, you know what, like I've got to try something different. I've got to, the opportunity is here. I'm grateful for that. And let's just give it a try. And so I ended up moving here to Vegas, and I started working with one of the resident shows here in town first. And it was really amazing right from the beginning. It was a stressful time because the shows were just opening up after COVID. So certainly, like anything, the COVID protocols and the procedures and all of that, it's stressful to keep track of. But it was a really great opportunity to kind of just refresh because the work life balance with the show schedule is a lot better than in the basketball world. With basketball, it's a long season. You're traveling
Yeah.
4 days of the week. There's constant change versus here, these shows in town, it's a set schedule. Like, there's two shows a day, 5 days a week. You get 2 days off a week. You get 4 weeks off a year. Like, and the calendar year in advance. So there's a lot of opportunity to just plan. Like you just know what's coming for you. And also it's a non-traditional work week. So you're working more in the afternoons and evenings, and you've got time during the day during the work week to go to appointments and like things that are only open on Monday through Friday 9 to 5. So it afforded me the opportunity to continue to go to therapy while still working full time and
So it
going to
sounds,
see
so let me ask you, so it sounds like this is part of a reset that's happening, right? In real time. The catalyst was
yeah.
going to see your therapist. So so I'm certified in something called mental health first aid. And in mental health
Okay.
first aid, we talk about transitions. with
Yeah.
adolescents, but for adults as well, right? Because adults were constantly going through transitions, especially after we leave our formal education. I want to ask
Yeah.
you, like, how did you navigate these transitions? And was there a moment of clarity for you where, okay, so you're at Cirque du Soleil. Do you let go of that dream of, the MBA? And you just sort of say, okay, I'm good with that. I'm good with where I am and where I'm going?
No, there was no clarity. It's
Oh,
about-
wow. Okay.
every day was just I just need to do the next right thing today. Like I
Right.
just need to find my happiness today. I need to find my peace today.
Living
There
in
was
the moment.
still Yes, and there was a part of me that no, I didn't let go of that dream of basketball, but I knew it wasn't right now. And I was loving the circus. The circus was a great opportunity for me to meet new people, to have new skills as a clinician. And it was meeting my need right now. And I had to keep bringing it back to that moment because if I allowed myself to get too caught up in the future again, I would start to question myself and start to doubt myself and start to panic. Will I ever be able to go back in basketball again? And there was a part of me that there was definitely a part of me that I needed to learn how to plan or how to set goals again because I was kind of avoiding setting goals for the future because I had been so wrapped up in that mindset before where I'm like, no, now I really need to focus on staying in the present. And so at some point of time, I definitely had to learn again how to reintroduce that goal setting into my life. But at the time, it was just, I need to find my happiness today because it wasn't easy, even though I had, it logistically was easier to figure out because of all the things that I said, right? Like the balance, the schedule, all those things. But it wasn't easy to navigate that in the moment. It was still very much, this is never what I wanted. This was never what I strived for. This was never my goal, but I know that I need it. So how do I get something out of this every single day right now?
So let's transition from that part of your career to where you are now with Yamamoto Wellness.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to ask you now is, like, how did all those experiences that you had, so just to kind of quickly recap, growing up in Chicago, this young girl with this dream of being in professional sports, specifically NBA, and you're able to
Mhm.
touch that dream, but then maybe it's not quite what you need at the time that you need it, and you
Yeah.
start getting into therapy and you make a little bit of a pivot, and now you have Yamamoto Wellness. What were the lessons that you could share, that helped inform you building your successful business?
Yeah, so ultimately, the reasons and the catalyst for this were my experiences with Reiki. So Reiki is Japanese energy healing, and I was introduced to this during a period of time I was living in Japan, and so I, with Cirque, had the opportunity to join one of their touring shows
Mhm.
that was going to Asia, and we were going to spend 4 months in South Korea and 9 months in Japan, and the opportunity came up for me to join this tour. And when that opportunity came up, there was something in me that, I hadn't felt before. There was something that there's some I couldn't describe it at the time. It as what I could most closely describe it as was intuition, but it just felt like there was something about this opportunity that I had to say yes to and I had to go. And it felt very little about the actual touring experience and more about there was a life experience in Asia. There was something about Asia and I needed to be there. And so when I went for that job, I was opened up to a lot of different aspects of healthcare, just different healthcare systems, different philosophies, different modalities of healing, and different. I was working with a different population of people who were from different places all over the world, and so I was just exposed to a lot of different elements from this experience. But for me personally, for my own personal healing journey, this opportunity, this Reiki master kind of opened up to me, and I started working with her for my own personal healing. It had nothing to do with a clinical skill that I wanted to learn to put on my resume. This was just, I needed help. Like, I needed to heal. I needed something, because therapy in Vegas, in the Western world, was very helpful, but also I wasn't getting where I knew I needed to go. There was a certain level of plateau or a block or, stagnant energy there that it got me what I needed, but it still wasn't where I wanted to go. And when I started working with this Reiki master was when things really started turning up, started pivoting and moving forward for me. And
So for
it was really amazing. Oh, yeah.
so I want to give you a chance to like share with the audience a little bit more for people unfamiliar with Reiki. How would you describe it, and what is the process for going through it?
Yeah, so Reiki is just another modality of energy healing or energy balancing. And so the concept behind this in general is that we all have energy, right? Like, our bodies require energy to function. Our nervous system requires energy to function with our circulatory system, with our lymphatic system. We need to consume food as energy to make these processes work. And there's a natural rhythm that we all operate at, uniquely to ourselves. Yes, there's consistency amongst humans in general, but we all have our own unique balance for our own bodies, and we require energy to interact with our environments as well. And so these energy systems can get disrupted from various things. If you have a bad night's sleep, if you have an injury, if you ate something that was bad for you or that you're allergic to, or air pollution or noise pollution, whatever. There's all sorts of things that can kind of alter that natural rhythm that your body needs to function at. And so Reiki is a form of energy balancing, where you kind of just restore the natural balance and rhythms of your own body to optimize your ability to heal from the inside out. And so Reiki, the way that looks, is hands-on healing. There's different placements on the body. It's very similar to, like, acupressure is probably the most I can
Mhm.
attribute it to, where
Okay.
different systematically there's different points on the body. If you look at it from an Eastern lens of like energy systems and meridians, there's different points of the body that are typically affiliated with different systems. But then Reiki is also kind of like, there's openness there too, of not just the systematic hand placements, but also what does the body need in that current moment? Where are the stagnant energy? Where are the blockages? And so you put your hands on those different areas and you leave them there for certain periods of time. And the contact between the hands and the person's and the energy systems start to restore the balance. It's very, there's other ways that we balance energy that I think are more widely accepted currently, like meditation, like breath work, yoga, like all these things are just another means and modality of balancing your energy and trying to restore energy. And it's just, Reiki is just another one of those things.
I kind of feel like when people have these conversations about the different ways to, heal or, you know, achieve a certain outcome that they're looking for, I kind of feel like just keep moving, just keep
Yeah.
going for your physical health and for your mental
Yeah.
health. Just keep moving. Don't
Yeah.
get comfortable in neutral. Neutral sometimes
Mm-hmm.
fine when you're making a pivot just for a moment. But in my
Mm-hmm.
experience, I feel like if you just keep moving and just keep going and have something to look forward to, is just such an
Yeah.
important like thing, right? Of all the things that we're worried about in our day to day work, our personal lives, just managing everything like building a new home, right?
Yeah.
Um, just have something to look forward to, especially in times like right now. I feel like we could probably go on another hour, but I know you're busy, and I do appreciate your time and joining us on the Becoming a Mental Health Champion podcast. Um, Today, we've been with Alicia Yamamoto with Yamamoto Wellness, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to maybe wrap up this chat with some things you would like to share, and then also tell people where they can find you either on social or come to the clinic.
Yeah. So I guess my main message to people is just, if something's not working, it may not be that it'll never work for you. It may not be right now. And so you've got to keep going. Like you said, you've got to keep going. You've got to keep pivoting and finding something that will help. movement is great, right? Walking is great, lifting is great, but you don't need those every single day, right? Sometimes the answer is stillness. Sometimes the answer is breath work. Sometimes the answer is walking. Sometimes the answer is playing sports. Sometimes the answer, and people, I think, they get discouraged and they lose their motivation because they're trying to discipline themselves into this like very regimented routine. And when it stops working for them, they start feeling discouraged. And, I think that message is so important of just keep going. There's just so many
Yeah.
different different modalities and needs to the healing process and the healing journey that just because it's not working for you today does not mean that it's not helping you. It just means maybe we need to be a little bit more creative and a little bit more open to the possibility of something being more presently needed today. And I think it's so important for people to not get discouraged and not lose hope because that message of keep going is just so important. Um, so that would be the main thing. And if you are interested in, I do Reiki, but I also do a variety of things, breath work, dry needling, cupping, Graston, corrective exercise, health coach, sometimes you just need to talk to someone that's outside of your own body. Like these are the things that I've tried. I've got this chronic pain that's manifesting and this is the process that I tried and or I've gotten 10 people's opinions on what to do and I just need help organizing it. And so if you're one of those people that just wants to try something different or just needs someone to bounce some ideas off of, you can find me. My website is www.yamamotowellness.com. I also have an Instagram at Dr. Alicia Yamamoto. And my clinic is in the Spring Valley area in Las Vegas.
Awesome. And we'll put all this information in the show notes. Thank you so much again. And we'll end it right there. Thanks for joining us on the Becoming a Mental Health Champion podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me. This was great.